Hello everybody, welcome to the second commentary on the side channel. Today I'm going to be talking about what it was like making the dying art of Call of Duty montages. This was a video that I spent over 2 years making, like about 2.5 years. I treated it as like a bit of like a short film or like an album in terms of the experience of making it and like everything that it taught me. It's, in my opinion, the best thing that I've made and the hardest thing that I've had to work on. Now I will say the title of this is going to be a little bit self-aggrandizing. I think I'm calling it like I tried to make my magnum opus, but keep in mind that like whether it's a magnum opus or not is something that like I don't really get to decide. I think that it's the best thing that I've made and it's the hardest that I've worked on a project, but I also believe that like art doesn't release, it escapes. You know, this work is no longer my own anymore. It's the world's, it's yours, it's other people's. It's for the world to interpret. And so ultimately I don't get to decide whether it's an opus or not, but I've chosen to pick a little bit of that self-aggrandizing title because I wanted to draw people into this video who are maybe working on a project of their own, or thinking of working on the idea that they've had in their minds for like years, and talk about my own experiences trying to make something that I felt was perfect in order to hopefully inspire people to work on their thing, or sort of talk about my own experiences in trying to make that thing and everything that it taught me. You know, this was a very personal project for me, so I can't exactly cover everything in detail, and I also can't remember everything upon working on the project, but I want to like distill a lot of my experiences into like a few core ideas that I took away from working on this. So I'm going to start this video by talking a bit about the process of working on the video itself and kind of how it evolved over time. If you haven't already seen it, I highly recommend checking out the video. If you're coming to this video for like art specific tips, I still highly recommend you watch that video because I don't want people to take advice from this video without knowing the thing that I've made, because if they don't end up liking the thing, then a lot of the tips in this video aren't going to be applicable to them. And also, like, I would appreciate anyone who goes to watch it. So, yeah, please go watch it. So initially, when working on this project, I started making it around the time I finished my speedrunning video. It was a video called, like, I speedrun every game you told me to. I spent 7 months working on that project, and it was my first time pushing myself creatively in terms of how much effort I was willing to put into a video. Up until that point, I had kind of held off from putting my all into video editing because I wanted to get better at making video ideas. You know, like doing all of the YouTube game stuff, if that makes sense. Like knowing how to make a video perform well. And so that video was the first time I was like, I really need to push myself and do the thing that no one else is willing to do, because those are the videos that people are gonna watch, right? Those are the things that are gonna be more entertaining than other stuff out there. So going into this project, I was more on the lines of like, oh, I'm not gonna actually make this too long. I originally intended the video to be around like 16 minutes was the idea that I had, until the video eventually turned into like 42 minutes. Crazy how time works, but yeah, I guess in talking a bit about how that transformation happened, I started out with writing and creating the song that I use in the video called Old House. That was one of the first things that I ended up making because I was in like a really big rap phase and I just wanted an excuse to rap for a video again. And that was at around like January of 2023. I ended up finishing making that rap in around March of 2023. By that point, I had just finished posting that speedrunning video, and I also started working on the Roblox edit that you end up seeing at the end of the video. I had pretty much all of the foundational things to that edit finished, all of the like clips edited with the cinematics and the effects, like I had that butterfly knife transition and everything, all of the poem and like meaning that I would convey in that edit. That would happen much later. By this point, I had a couple ideas in my mind as to where the video was going to go. I knew that I was going to talk a little bit about like moving and the process of like moving on from these games that were such like a important part of my childhood, and I knew the video was gonna end on this Roblox edit, right? So I sort of had that like moving, that house metaphor in my head, but the full scope of the video didn't really come into play until a couple things took place. The first was me returning to the COD games after like a really long time. I went back to my PS4 and played BO4, and I talk about that moment in the video of like returning to the games, and that's really when the moving fully sunk in, and the fact that I didn't feel the same way in playing these games that I used to, because I'm a different person now, right? I'm an adult. I'm not the same person that I used to be, and this part of me that was once so important, that brought me comfort, wasn't going to do that in the same way that it used to. And this is a bit of like YouTuber content brain at play, but literally when that was happening, I had the vision for, I was like, oh my god, I need to talk about this in the video, while I'm like crying. Like, this was genuinely a thought that went through my mind. I saw the vision in the moment of where it would appear in the video, and like, everything from then on that I was going to sort of talk about, and the larger narrative sort of came into play, and like grieving the loss of montages and the games and everything that they meant to me, like that felt so intertwined with this video to the point where it felt like something very important to talk about within it. And it was around this time of being more sentimental that I also began returning to some of those older edits that I knew that I was going to talk about in the video. I knew that I was going to talk about Salt and Bay Village because both of those videos were incredibly important to me, and the way that Bay Village ended I knew was something that was like very much relatable to my own experience of montages, of it just kind of ending abruptly. But I didn't know the full scope of how important those edits were going to be to the narrative until I went back and pieced together Bay Village and Salt and realized how they were connected. The fact that these edits weren't understood fully, right? Like, I hadn't seen any comments even knowing what the full poem was. Like, a lot of people just didn't know what it was. I felt like these were edits that weren't fully understood, and part of the video was me wanting to explore why that was. And it was really the moment in like piecing everything together for myself and coming to a realization of what I thought these edits were trying to communicate that I felt pretty solidified in, that I was like, oh, this video is now beyond me. I need to pay justice to this vision that I have in my head, as well as these edits, because I want people to really appreciate them for what they are, and try to convey to other people how influential and meaningful these edits were in my own life. After that, I sort of ran into like the chair metaphor when I was working on the intro to the video. I genuinely had no idea the chair was going to be like this reoccurring motif in the video that was very symbolic. It started out of me like telling my friends of the story of me scratching my chair when I would get mad, and they would laugh at it every time I told that story. And so I was like, oh, this is like probably the perfect story to mention in the intro of the video. And then I remembered how the chair related to me moving, and that's when I realized that the chair and the door was going to be like very symbolic in the video. As a side note, I want to mention as well that I got the permission from both my parents to like bring that stuff up in the video. By the time it released, I made sure to show them to make sure they were cool with everything. And keep in mind that like I had a lot of these realizations very early on into making the video. And I think this is important to mention just because it shows how much of this video was planned out ahead of time and how much of it sort of wasn't and evolved over the course of making it. And I think it's important to talk about because I think it played a huge role in how the video ended up shaping up by the end and how it felt working on it towards the end. In order to sort of explain this relationship between, like, planning out the video and, my experience with it emotionally, I kind of need to talk about something that I learned over the course of making this video. And this is sort of this idea of how art is more of like a conversation, and it's more of a moment. There's a really good philosopher and YouTuber by the name of CJ the X. I think calling them a YouTuber, they would probably not like that. They're a video essayist, right? And they have a couple videos talking about the relationship between objectivity and subjectivity within art. And within those videos, CJ the X kind of comes to this conclusion about art, which is that art can encompass so many different things, right? It can be a painting, it can be a video, it can be a song, it can be a banana in a gallery, right? It can be a toilet that's put in a gallery. So like, what separates art from not art, right? In some ways you can't really separate it. There are some times when an object becomes art, and there's some times when an object isn't art. It sort of speaks to this idea that art isn't a thing, it's a moment, right? Art isn't the painting, it's not the banana peel, it's not the video, It's a moment experienced when we connect with a thing. It's when we connect with the video, and we build a relationship with an object. And I think this is relevant to my own experience of working on this video, because I think when we make things, the process of working on the thing is itself a part of the art. I think the process always informs the outcome of what the thing is. A lot of the video is me talking about the process of me making the video, and when we create things, we ourselves are sort of experiencing that moment of art for ourselves. When we're trying to make something and we sort of discover something, I think art happens so much within that discovery, because it's all about us interacting with this object, right? This process of working on this thing, and then within that moment we are transformed by that experience. Some of my favorite moments of working on this project weren't in making the parts of it that I had really planned out in my head. It was the discovery of Bay Village, right? It was the discovery of what if I do this weird thing, right? What if I try to make this in stop motion? It was those moments of excitement that truly made it really fulfilling to work on this project. I think this speaks to a really important lesson that I want everyone to take away from this video, which is we need to be patient with ourselves. When we're trying to make something that's really profound or important to us, we need to allow ourselves moments to experience that connection. We can't really feel connected to a thing if we're working on it 8 hours a day. We need to have time to ourselves to work on the thing for a couple hours a day, and then pull back and reflect on that experience. And reflect on the video itself, right? Watch it back over again and see how it makes us feel. I think that's very important in the process of making things, where we allow ourselves the leeway to have discovery and the leeway to build a new relationship and be transformed by the thing that we're making. But if art is a conversation, I think it's very important that we have a cutoff for that conversation at one point. Yes, there will be times that we feel very connected to working on the thing that we're making, and we feel very inspired, and it's very easy to make the thing. But a lot of projects, once you have them very planned out, and you know where it's going, and it's just about finishing the thing, it does get to the point where it is just about finishing the thing, regardless of how connected you feel to the thing or not. And that's what led to a lot of burnout late into working on it. By the time it was about August of 2020, I'd finished most of the video. I'd finished all of the first part of the video, or most of it, 80% of it, and then I'd finished part 3 of the video, everything from me going back to the games up until right before the Roblox montage. I had all of that basically fully completed, and then 90% of the Roblox montage. So from then on, it was about me learning stop motion, and you heard the date, right? That was August of 2020. That stop motion segment of the video took 6 months to make. And it's not just because stop motion was difficult, because it absolutely was. I was trying to recreate South Park animation in Sony Vegas. And that is really hard for just one person to do. I felt a lot of burnout because I knew 90% of what this part of the video was going to say, and it meant that I couldn't be as nuanced as maybe I would have wanted to within that section. I knew that that part was going to be me sort of being confrontational in some ways, and that isn't really something that I usually like to do, and so it became very difficult in the process of me working on it to know that I could be making something that could upset a lot of people. That became difficult to work on because of that. And I also felt like I could communicate some of these ideas in a way that wouldn't be as confrontational, but by that point it also would sort of fail to deliver the message that I was fully trying to send with the video initially. And so I had to make a choice between, building the thing that was authentic to the vision that I originally had, and making something that felt more authentic to how I felt now, at potentially sacrificing the full sort of quality of the video. So I chose to really commit to that original vision, and I think that taught me a lesson of it's going to be really hard to work on a thing where you feel disconnected to it, right? You're not getting that sort of artistic connection and experience within it, but at the same time, you also need to learn to respect and love and care for the version of yourself that had that idea and really believe in their vision, because it wasn't until finishing that segment that I watched it back and I was like, oh, this actually hits the spot. Like, this was the thing that I had in my head. So I guess what you can take away from that is, like, it's going to be difficult to work on something when you have it very much planned out. I think at some points it is important to allow yourself a level of, like, discovering something new with it, but at some point you have to make a cutoff as to what you're working on. And I will say, like, there was one kind of moment in working on this video that did bring me some level of, like, inspiration again, and it really helped me solidify what I wanted the video to say and, like, have a goalpost for the video. And that was when, in August of 2024, I was able to, like, show Reese, the editor of Bay Village and Salt, and a version of the video that I'd worked on up until that point. But he saw that part of the video and sort of gave me some insight as to his feelings of working on Bay Village and Salt, and that, like, became very inspiring to me. Like, in our little DM conversation, he brought up, like, some things in the video where he was like, oh, I used to know that editor, and, like, he went by a different name, and all of this stuff was, like, super inspiring to me at the time, and some of the things that he talked about really made me realize what I wanted to communicate by the end of it, and that's what, like, helped push me to, like, finish this thing and make the thing that I had in my head. This idea of, like, trying to make a video that I had so planned out in my head also kind of ties into this idea of perfectionism. And this is something that I struggled a lot with in working on the video, where I really wanted to make something that felt authentic to that original vision. When you try to make something perfect, you can kind of infinitely continue to work on the thing forever, because in truth, the thing will never be perfect. I don't think this video of mine is perfect. I think by the end of it, my goalpost was to make the thing that I had in my head all those years ago, and I think I succeeded in doing that, but that doesn't mean that that vision was perfect in of itself. Over the course of the video was me kind of realizing that it was imperfect and choosing to really commit to that anyway in order to grow creatively and convey the message that I felt like would connect with a lot of people because it connected with me for so many years. And so the main tip that I can give here is, like, try to set a healthy goalpost for yourself, or be honest about that goalpost with yourself, because if you keep constantly changing that goalpost, the video will never fully finish. Allow yourself moments to discover something new in the thing that you're creating, because I think that's exciting, but past a point, you need to allow the video to escape, is what I'm saying. And this ties into the idea of pushing creative boundaries, right? That original speedrunning video was me pushing my creative boundaries for the first time, but this video was me really pushing those boundaries, right? It was my first time using After Effects. I know in the video I say, like, oh, this whole thing was edited in Vegas, but I did use After Effects for like 10% of the video. Some of the scribbly on-screen effects I was using After Effects. I was also learning, like, 3D for the first time. It was my first time using Blender. It was my first time doing, like, stop motion, and this led to a lot of problems in, like, making the thing, right? Like, that's what led to a lot of the scope creep of this video, of being like, oh, I want this segment to have this, and oh, I want this segment to be in, like, stop motion. And while I think it made a really cool thing, it meant that I could not anticipate when the video was going to be done. My original vision for the video was it was going to be like 16 minutes long, and I was going to finish it by the end of summer of 2023. Needless to say, that didn't happen, and eventually it ended up being like so much later than I thought it would because of the amount of scope creep. And I think it's important to remember or take away from this that, like, when you're pushing your creative boundaries, you gotta take it easy on yourself, and you have to have patience, right? When you're trying to make something that's very difficult, that's pushing a lot of your creative boundaries, that is the thing that you need it to, like, say the thing that you want and be the sort of vision that you intend, like, that doesn't happen in a day, right? Things are exciting and unique and boundary pushing because they are difficult to make, and you will quickly burn out if you're working 8 hours a day on one project. Most of the time I was working on this video for like 2 hours a day, 3 hours a day, sometimes like 4 hours a day. Towards the end, it got to like sort of the 6 and 8 hours, and at the start of the video, it was more at that like 6 hour mark, right? But over the course of making it, I had to be mindful and really pace myself while making it. Pushing creative boundaries is really hard. It's very stressful. It's very difficult. You're gonna make mistakes, and you're gonna fail to anticipate whenever your project is gonna come out. So if you're working in a new creative medium, or you're pushing yourself really hard to do something new that you haven't done before, just be mindful of the fact that, like, however long you think it's gonna take, quadruple that, right? And this kind of connects into this other idea as well that I wanted to talk about, which is that life goes on whether you want it to or not while you're making the creative thing. Regardless of you making this one project, you need to be able to live outside of your work. You need to live outside of it in order to give yourself the time to reflect on the thing, to escape, to even feel connected to the thing, right? Like, you need to live life in order to be inspired enough to make something. And that goes for even when you have most of the ideas sort of in your head. You know, things are going to go on in your life whether you want them to or not, or whether you're working on the thing or not. I've had so many changes in my personal life, my social life. I mean, like, I moved houses early into making the video. You know, I've been dealing with, like, quite a bit of health stuff as of late. And I suspect that a lot of this was caused by the stress of working on the video, you know? So, like, it's very important to allow yourself patience and, like, give yourself the breathing room and time to process your emotions and deal with the stress that you're dealing with, because that stress is absolutely going to play a role in you being able to finish the thing, and it's just going to make your life way harder, and it's going to make the whole process of working on things way less enjoyable. Needless to say, I fucking hated the last 6 months of working on this video. I'm glad that I did it, but that shit was hell, I'm not gonna lie. And after finishing this thing, I'm kind of in the process of, like, you know, trying to heal again. Art is never more important than the relationships you build, the connections you make, you know, taking care of yourself, building a healthy relationship with yourself. Art is important because of the ways that it inspires us to live our life. And so I think it kind of defeats itself if we are allowing our art to take precedence over our lives. That, I think, is sort of the main idea that I wanted to communicate in this video, is that life is more important than art. But to end this thing out, I do want to say, like, you know, thank you to everyone who watched the video and left impacted and connected with it, you know? Even if you didn't feel connected with it, honestly, thank you for watching it. Especially those who left comments. There were such lovely comments of people sharing their own stories. You know, stories about the scene that I never knew. Stories from people sharing their own forms of grief and escape. And it was a lot of really heartfelt messages. And so I'm like very grateful to everyone who saw the video and, like, gave it the space enough and, like, saw the heartfelt thing that I was really trying to communicate with it. I genuinely thought I was gonna post the video and, like, a huge amount of people were gonna fucking hate it. Like, I was expecting to not receive nearly as much support as I ended up receiving. Some of my favorite parts of, like, making things is when you make something and someone watches it, and instead of talking about the thing, they talk about themselves. And this is the first time I've made, like, a YouTube video on the internet, which is so normally, like, a disconnected place, and, like, have people talk about themselves. I'm trying not to get emotional, but, like, yeah, that shit's very beautiful, and I'm very appreciative of that. So yeah, while I'm slightly teary-eyed from someone cutting onions, I'm gonna end this video here. I think that's all I really wanted to say. Subscribe if you're dude, crazy to do a sub plug right now, but I have to. Go subscribe to the main channel as well. Like, I want to get those numbers up. And yeah, I appreciate you watching. Hope you got some form of value out of this, and have a good one.